Hello and welcome to this panel where we will look at the operator opportunity in blockchain. Delighted to be joined by three guests today. First off, delighted to be joined by Kathy from Imperial College. Kathy, welcome.
No, thank you very much.
Also joined by Ling from TBCA Soft. Hi, Ling.
Thank you very much.
And Ivo from Sprint.
Good morning.
Hey. So I'm going to start off with a bit of a background question. I would argue that blockchain is quite niche. So maybe Kathy, you can start, and three of you can tell me how you got into this area. Kathy, please.
Sure. So obviously, being a researcher, we're looking at all the new emerging technologies. Started working with blockchain in about 2009, 2010, and we established the Centre for Cryptocurrency Research and Engineering because we thought it was a really exciting way to engage with digital transformation. We've done about 35 proofs of concept now, and yeah, so it was really basically seeing a new technology that was going to be extremely transformative for business and society, and also probably our economy.
Right. Ling?
Yes, so like Kathy, I think blockchain is going to do a very big change to the whole industries. In my previous venture, we did e-commerce since 1993. We think blockchain will be just bigger. So 3 years ago, we worked with SoftBank to launch an idea called CrossCarrier blockchain platform. So we are making a platform that can have the trust and also high efficiency for all applications.
Right.
Yes.
Ivo?
Well, I would agree that it's probably a niche from technology point of view, but what it is not is where you can apply it on, because it addresses all kinds of cost elements of any big system. And when you work in telecommunications, mobile and Internet of Things, then actually you see that it can be applied just about everywhere. So I really approached it from a necessity to optimize the systems, reduce the cost. And if you then work with the SoftBank group, you rapidly run into people like Ling, and then it takes off from there.
Obviously, there's a link there between SoftBank and the CBSG. Ling, could you open up a bit about the CBSG and what it sort of is designed to do?
So CBHG stands for Carrier Blockchain Study Group. Okay. So in 2017, SoftBank and TBCA, we decided to promote the idea of cross-carrier blockchain. And we understand being with a company or two companies alone cannot make that happen. We are building the blockchain platform together with the global carrier altogether.
Right.
So right now we have more than 15 telco are building this blockchain platform, totally cover 1.3 billion subscribers. So we are very fortunate that we get a lot of recognition from international carrier to build this blockchain platform together.
Right. And at Sprint, how did you what do you see the opportunities there?
Well, as I said earlier, one of the use cases of blockchain, but definitely not the only one, is to reduce cost. But most of the cost for carriers are actually inter-carrier settlements, a lot of transactions. And if you look at it from an IoT point of view, it's even more transactions between millions of devices that basically roam all around the world, travel all around the world. And that means implicitly a lot of transactions between multiple carriers. And never ask multiple carriers to figure out something out together without somebody in the middle, because it just won't work. So when we came across the consortium, we entered that quite quickly to be able to set the pace, but also reap the benefits as quickly as we could.
Right. Kathy, you look at blockchain from business all over,
Yes.
different industries. Where do you see the operator opportunity, and is it as big or bigger than some of the other industries you look at?
Yeah, I think telco is an extremely interesting industry to think about putting blockchain into. So we worked together with a startup who's actually here, Zeta Networks. We worked with them to create a carrier marketplace, which is based on blockchain. Mm-hmm. That's based on the Hyperledger product from the Linux Foundation. And they've delivered that together with Colt Technologies, which is obviously a carrier as well. And what that was looking at is taking the concept of blockchain a bit further into the mobile network. And what does it really mean for the engineering of the networks? So we were looking at how you use blockchain to connect SDN controllers, and how you can establish those things dynamically and automatically, rather than relying on people going out and negotiating contracts all the time. Because as we move into the world of data, services, and it becomes much more heavily data service driven. In particular for 5G, we're going to see a lot of requirements to automate a lot of those back-end systems. So it was more of a, when we look at telecommunications, I think there's also a massive opportunity in the actual networks, not just looking at business processes. Although, I agree with you that the remittances are obviously the low-hanging fruit of the industry, because it is where there's so much cost, right? And removing that cost is really quite powerful.
Yeah, for us, actually, removing cost was, of course, the trigger to get into it. But I got more excited when I saw it is not just about moving the cost away. It's actually the fact that you can contribute to a ledger. And I saw customers that were trying to establish complete new ways of creating revenues and exchanging money, utilizing the blockchain that's sat underneath. That's when I get excited, when we allow our customers to make more money. We have a customer, NX Car. They have built a blockchain into the car, first to reduce cost. That they turned a mini blockchain into a server that could contribute to the ledger, and now they're bringing blockchain into a car, and people between cars can exchange money. And they are extending warranties of cars, and now suddenly a dealer is standing out there and they can sell the same car but with a higher warranty because they know more about the car through the blockchain. That's the type of stuff where I don't think blockchain, I think customer, and I think new revenues.
Yeah, it's very interesting you talk about linking it to sort of customer interaction. I think that's actually really quite a powerful opportunity, in particular for IoT. So, yeah.
There's also talk about linking it to the customer with digital identity and stuff like that. Ling, you want to talk a bit about that?
Okay, yes. So the blockchain is about actually you synchronize the data together. Imagine it's a gigantic database that everyone share. The problem of identity is that because of the Privacy Act, every identity information are siloed. So I don't share the privacy information with you, you don't share that with me. And through that, how do you identify each other? The only way you do it is that I share with everyone. When I register GSMA, MWC, I share all the information myself. At the end of the day, all the privacy information is scattering around. So the idea is using the CrossCarrier blockchain to verify the identity without disclosing the privacy information. That's what our vision. So we had a press release with SoftBank. We launched this initiative called CrossCarrier Identity System.
Right.
So we want to solve this problem.
Obviously, as an operator, you have access to users' personal information, and I guess blockchain plays a big role in keeping that safe.
Yes, it does. And one thing that it allows us to do is to identify the device that's being utilized for the Internet of Things, whilst not linking it exactly what's being done with the device. So already you establish a better security perimeter by separating the identity of what is being used on top of it from what's being used to manage it. That separation is the first thing we do. And then of course there's multiple technologies that we use. Once you've got it authenticated in an automated way, it allows you to treat the rest of the data just in a better way.
Right. Kathy, have you done any work on?
Yeah, I mean, we've done quite a bit of work on IoT, not necessarily from a telecommunications perspective, but we've got two projects. One, we looked at using blockchain in order to provide data integrity, in particular in energy systems. So how do we work out when a wind turbine has been hacked, for example? Does the firmware change? We worked with a company called GuardTime, which has a sort of blockchain type solution in order to do that, called KSI. And that's been very successful. A lot of different energy companies have come to speak to us about that. The thing we've been looking at about identity actually is we have a project called DataNet, where we're looking at how we would manage and control identities using the blockchain, but together with more advanced technologies as well. So we're looking at combining those things with machine learning and 5G and those kind of activities as well. What does it mean from an economics perspective as well as a technical perspective? So the business relationships are also extremely important when you think about a blockchain.
How important is it to combine blockchain with AI, 5G?
Okay, so the blockchain is about to provide the trusted data. And when you have artificial intelligence machine learning, you need to learn from data. So the accuracy of the data is important. Imagine you have two AI systems. They need to learn from two sets of the data. But one set of data is highly trustable. Another one, the problem of the internet is you have too many data. You don't know what is real, what is not real.
Right.
So I think the blockchain contribution is that we can provide very trustworthy data for artificial intelligence to learn from and to make a decision upon.
Is Sprint working on?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's always a bit of a balance and a counterbalance, because whilst AI and 5G will drive the need for even more data, more, I mean, any AI algorithm will become more intelligent when it is attached to more things with more data. Mm-hmm. But that also is, it's spreading like a wildfire, is that there is so much data out there. But it's also, therefore, triggering some of the current limitations of blockchain. I mean, a blockchain in itself requires a lot of processing power, and processing power in an IoT device with a battery inside actually drains the battery. Now, whilst 5G, you hear it here all the time, we all talk about low latency, but actually today's blockchain is actually quite slow. So you see on the one hand the demand taking off, but there's a lot of investment now in technologies to make sure that the downside, battery drain and compute power and slow reaction time, is being designed out. I mean, we're working with companies like 6Gil and NXM that we built a car solution with to actually address those technology challenges.
That brings me on to my next question, actually. What are some of the major challenges around blockchain? I know you mentioned the processing power, but anything else?
Well, ironically, I think sometimes blockchain suffers its own success a little bit. There's this automatic link between blockchain and cryptocurrency. Yeah. Now, whilst, of course, because of the encryption, these two things are strongly intercorrelated, ironically, cryptocurrency doesn't have a very positive correlation to it, because cryptocurrency is associated with risk, where actually blockchain is there to take risk out. So I think there's a lot of education to be done. I think we need to move a little bit more away from the fact that blockchain is highly clever. I actually think we need to position blockchain as something that is a very reliable, automated mechanism to create trust. It actually works quite well.
What's your take on that, Kathy?
Well, I think we do have some definite challenges, and one of the things we're doing at the centre is looking at how you engineer blockchain more effective and more efficiently. The one big thing I think from a business perspective is that the previous generations of digital technologies have been about doing business more robustly, securely, faster, doing the same industrial processes as that we've had since the early 1900s, basically, just faster. Blockchain is actually about fundamentally redefining how those business processes are put into place in the first place. You have to get a consortium together before you can do your technical design. And that's a fundamental difference, and it's one of the reasons I feel as well that many people are saying, well, there's been a lot of hype about blockchain, but what we see is a lot of proofs of concept, and then nothing actually goes out into real world production. And I think it is actually about understanding that those business processes need changing as well, and it's a fundamentally different way to think about doing business. And it's really like a collaborative economy, if you will, for large companies, which is quite so cool, actually.
Definitely.
Fun. Yeah.
Ling, with your work at CBSG,
yes.
Do you find that operators link blockchain with cryptocurrency and are therefore reluctant to?
Okay, so I want to echo Ivo and Kathy's statements.
Yeah.
In the beginning, the first application on blockchain was indeed cryptocurrencies. But it does not necessarily need to be cryptocurrencies. And Kathy also mentioned the first thing you need to do is to have a consortium together, because blockchain is all about creating trust. At the end of the day, you are creating trust between people. So you need to have a consortium to talk about what we are going to do. So that's what we did in 2017 about this consortiums. After this consortium has been established, we keep communicating with the telcos, and they agree we need to build something that solves the problem Ivo mentioned about the inefficiency of the computing power. It doesn't have to be proof of work that use a lot of power. When you have a consortium, you can do much efficient way to create the trust. So I fully agree with Kathy and Ivo about these two things, and that's the purpose of the consortium. And TPCA want to use this consortium's agreement, and then we make the technology to fulfill those requirements. Yeah.
How do operators compare to other industries in the development of blockchain?
I think telecom operator has a huge advantage. First of all, they are distributed. all the carrier naturally distributed. You don't see one particular carrier that dominated the world. In the internet, it's a totally different story. Google, Facebook, they dominate the world. Telco cannot.
Right.
Second, telco are very well connected. They are connected with a high-performance network. And by doing a distributed database, you need to have a high quality of communications. So we believe telco has the best position to build a very high, reliable, high-performance blockchain platform.
Yeah, and it's you just repeated one of our biggest frustrations, right? Is that the others rule the world and we were just a part of it. But it's true. I mean, it's very true that operators, on the one hand, we are in every single thing that is digital and connected, much to our pride and accomplishment. But on the other hand, the moment something turns global, actually the operator world, you know, whilst we don't think about it when you pass a phone call from one side to the other or you send a data packet from one side to the other across the world, that all works fine. But to actually come across real working cross-operator commercial models that do more than passing a data packet or a call is actually quite limited. Now, we're clearly biased. You just called blockchain cool, which is good. You run blockchain as a company, right? And I utilize to take cost out. But I actually think there is massive opportunity out there, not just between operators. The most exciting projects that we do is when we see a blockchain that attaches an identity of something coming out of the telco world to the identity of, let's say in this example, it is a part of a car, to a third identity, which is actually the car ownership, which is the person driving it. And now suddenly you've got three identities, each of them trusted, but if you combine them in one blockchain, you can do a whole lot of things with it. You can actually create whole new value cases. In this case, it is actually exchanging applications between different car drivers. It is that type of stuff that I think will make it accelerate.
In your experience, have you seen collaboration at this level between operators on a technology like this?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to TBCA Soft, within the SoftBank group, our R&D departments work really well together. We work very closely with our friends from SoftBank in Japan, which is the Japanese operator. In our company Lau, who's famous for his knowledge of blockchain, works across different operators together. So there is definitely a level of realization that we can take cost down and simplify the processes. I do predict, though, that what will take off and accelerate even faster is private blockchains. Because on the one hand, the blockchain across different operators and across different entities is very appealing because it creates that trust in the middle, but it also creates a certain level of complexity. If you utilize the same technology within a trusted system and you have a private blockchain, the technology in itself actually can be simplified. So I think we see some acceleration there as well. Right.
A quick word on regulation. Are there any concerns at that level?
Yes. So naturally, when people don't understand the new things, the first thing they react is, oh, no, protect yourself. So, but when in the consortium, one of the consortium's agenda is to talk to regulators, that they understand what is this technology. When we are creating a gigantic shared database, a lot of things become more transparent. That means less regulation need to be applied to the transparencies. We have seen very positive growth in different countries. When we communicate with them, they understand, oh, blockchain is not only cryptocurrencies, but we are creating the trust among multiple parties. And another thing I want to mention that why Teleco is very good to create this system is any single gigantic company that probably located in certain country will create certain trust for another countries. Like Google. Google is a very good company, but there are some country has some concern because it's an American company. But when we are building the trust, it's difficult to trust one single entity. But if this is a distributed trust from different carriers and then create trust together, I think that will be the right way to create the trust between multiple parties.
I mean, just with regards to regulators, so I've been doing quite a bit of work towards the OECD. and they've been looking at blockchain from the perspective of antitrust and consumer protection, obviously. So what they seem to have come down to saying is actually the existing regulations work very well, and you know, we would need to work out how to ensure that certain parts of the blockchain comply with this. I will say in my experience in other industries where we've worked, for example, in insurance, where we brought many insurance companies together, the one thing that was extremely interesting about that process was it took firstly it was 9 months because it was all lawyers talking about how to establish a consortium properly and what data could be shared and what wouldn't. The other thing was that the regulator was invited in from day one as part of the consortium. So you can have hybrid blockchain systems that are actually quite powerful, where you would have a closed system or a private blockchain that you're talking about that would, you know, allow parties to exchange the information with one another, but then you have complete oversight for the regulatory authority. So actually you can even imagine taking cost out of the regulatory authority's budget, well, not their budget necessarily, but cost out in order to ensure that there isn't antitrust or consumer protection issues with these type of technologies.
Fascinating discussion. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Kathy, Ling and Ivo, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.